Hi everyone, and welcome to week 4 in English 101. So our kind of new writing weight is a little lighter this week. I will have comments back to you on your revisions of Essay 1 in a few days, but in the meantime, I would like you to now focus on editing. So we talked a little bit last week about the difference between revision and editing, where editing is sort of the more finite, more minuscule, minute details in your writing. This is where we talk about punctuation, verb tense, grammar rules, and pretty much just how your ideas on a sentence level are fitting together. So that's going to be our focus this week. I know that it can kind of feel like, oh, well, we're in week 4 and we're still working on the same one essay. But I really like to slow this first essay down so that you get these different pieces of the writing process so that when we do speed it up in essay 2 and 3, that you're kind of able to apply these skills there. The other thing I'm going to talk about in this video is emailing, which I like to do when I talk about editing just because emails often are where we make editing mistakes. And also, just at this point in the semester, I think it's a great thing to kind of remind everyone of and to focus on, since emailing is a daily part of our lives as students and professionals. So let's go ahead and get started. So the assignments we got for this week, I did push your blog post from last week into this one. So your blog post 1 will be due Wednesday. And then the final draft of essay 1 will be due this coming Sunday. So remember that what I encourage everyone to do is to turn in at least something, okay? Because you can revise any essay for a higher grade, but if you don't turn the essay in, you cannot revise it, okay? And you do have to pass all 4 essays to pass the course. So we've been working on essay 1 for several weeks, and you've gotten my feedback on your draft last week. You'll do some more editing this week. So hopefully what your memoir looks like this coming Sunday is very different from what you started with. That's the goal. All right. If I look it over and I'm like, oh, I just read this last week when we talked about revising and you haven't revised, then, you might see that reflected in your grade. But don't panic. There is the option to revise. And actually, what I might do is set up conferences with you all next week. So you can kind of meet with me one-on-one. We can chat about the essay and then talk about whether you'd like to revise or not. So those 2 assignments, blog post, essay final draft. So a couple of kind of reminders about the blog post. So I talked about this assignment in detail in last week's video. So if you're not sure about this assignment, or if you're like, hey, I need a refresher, go back to that video, revisit the assignment sheet. It's in both our week 3 and week 4 folder. So the blog post, there's a list of topics you can choose from, or you can choose something else. Just email me and kind of get that okayed. This is just a way for you to kind of have fun with your writing. It's a way for you to work towards practicing a little more creative license and something that's a little different from an essay format. So these are gonna be published to your classmates and I, so keep that in mind. And then your blog should be 500 words and should address a different topic. Keep in mind, the top blog from each round will receive a 5-point extra credit bump. Typically, I have students apply this to an essay, but the choice is yours. A couple tips to keep in mind. Just like with essays, blog posts will be more successful if you do some free writing first. So take a minute to kind of write out your ideas before you jump in. Remember that you're talking to our class, so you have a specific audience, and that should be reflected in your writing. And then I did notice that some of you have posted your blog already, but in the wrong area. So make sure that you are posting to blog post 1. Not blog post 2, 3, 4. No. This is blog post 1. Okay? So let's chat about essay 1 and editing. But first, I want to kind of talk about some questions that it's important to think about before we get into editing. So take a second, pause, and ask yourself, how would you define a sentence in English? I know that sounds kind of silly because haven't we all agreed what a sentence is? But you'll find if you actually reflect on this question, that may not be true. Should we have a standard English that we teach, that we write in? And then what are the factors that influence how you speak or write in English? So go ahead and pause this video and think for a second. Okay, so given a little thought about these, there's really several schools of thought in editing and whether we should teach grammar in college classrooms. And at this point, I believe that other types of Englishes besides standard American English that we teach in school are valid and deserve a place in our education system. And in talking about commas or verb tenses or what sounds formal enough, I do not want anyone to get the feeling that their language is being demeaned or doesn't have a place here. The reality is that much of our world works in standard American English. And there are systems in place that mean that particularly white people in middle class and upper middle class situations benefit from those systems, including the emphasis on standard American English. So if you do not speak standard American English at home, the idea of editing and working on grammar and punctuation may be harder for you because you don't have that same kind of linguistic background in your home life. If you speak a second language, if English is not your first language, if it's your second, your third, your fourth, then working in standard American English can be difficult, okay? But I want to recognize that, and I want to honor the other dialects that you may speak, either at home, with friends, at your job, around other people, and that what you might use in an essay may be different, but that does not make it better, okay? But when we work in standard English, we're talking about sort of the widely accepted academic English. And I think that it's important to understand these rules because in a sort of professional and white privileged society, this understanding these rules will help you be more successful as a writer, period. Okay? And I think that once you get the rules down for standard English, that if you want to incorporate other dialects that you speak or you're comfortable in, please do. Okay? That's completely welcome. But what we're going to talk about is standard English. Alrighty, so let's talk about sentence structure and comma use. So this is an example from a student essay, and we're looking for sentence structure and commas specifically, okay? So it says, my academic advisor told me not to take 18 credit hours for the fall semester. I'm regretting not having listened to her. Now that I'm in this many classes, I'm overwhelmed and having a hard time keeping up in my classes. Hopefully my professors will be willing to help me, which I'm sure they are. Okay, so hopefully on first read, you can tell that there are some sentence structure, maybe commas missing in places. So take another second, pause this video, and see if you can select where you might fix, okay? Okay, so now that you've reflected on what you might fix, I will go through what I would. So at the very least, I like to go sentence by sentence and read out loud what I've written and kind of ask myself, okay, am I missing anything here? So in this first slide, we see my academic advisor told me not to take 18 credit hours for the fall semester. That's a full thought. From my academic advisor to semester, that is one sentence. Then I have, I'm regretting not having listened to her. That's another sentence. What we have here is called a run-on, all right? When you have two complete sentences, two independent clauses, and we've smashed them together without anything else. So what we need here is a comma and a conjunction, okay? You could also put a period here, and that would separate the sentences fine. Also, this next sentence, now that I'm in this many classes, I'm overwhelmed and having a hard time keeping up in my classes. So from now to classes, that is a dependent clause, meaning it cannot stand alone by itself. But I can't put it in with an independent clause without a comma, okay? So what I need is a comma after classes. Further on, you see I've got this transition word hopefully. Typically those need a comma after. And then finally, I highlighted this last fragment, this which I'm sure they are. This is what's called a sentence fragment, all right? It's separated from other sentences with a period, but it can't stand by itself. It's not a full thought, okay? Because of the which. So, couple options. I could have a comma after me, combine it with that sentence before. I could, I might recommend sort of rephrasing that all together, but there are several options and there's not always one answer. So I'm going to share with you guys another video. I'm not going to go through it here, but I'm going to share with you another video on fixing run-ons and understanding commas. And the readings you have this week are also going to run you through different rules for how you use commas and why. This is something we're going to keep coming back to throughout the semester, but I think if you're not sure about how to use commas, really pay attention to the readings for this week and practice those rules. Okay? You'll often see that your writing will improve vastly. Once you understand the rules, you'll stop making these mistakes. But as far as editing goes, this is what I mean. When you read your paper out loud and you identify, okay, here specifically is where I want to focus. All right, so how you edit is going to be kind of dependent on where your language is, right? And where your mistakes are. So it's very personalized. The last thing I want to talk about is emails. All right, so one of the other readings you have for this week is an article titled How to Email Your Professor Without Being Annoying AF. And I think it's a funny article, but I also think it's very useful. So here are a couple examples of emails I've gotten from students in previous semesters, but I get these every semester. And I want to kind of talk about why these can be problematic. Okay, so you'll see in this first one, this is an email without a subject, and it just has a link to a OneDrive document. So if I was getting this email, if you were getting this email, what would your reaction be? What questions do you have that this email is not answering? First of all, I don't know who it's from. Second of all, I don't know who what that document is. Third of all, Swick's over here saying some of this content's been blocked because we don't know what this link is. So there's a lot of information I don't have. With this email below, I don't see a start new button. Again, I have a lot of questions. Who are you? What class are you in? What are you trying to do? If you can answer those questions for me in your email, I don't have to go back and forth and kind of guess at what you need. So when you think about emailing your instructors, especially, you want to have more of a actual, I don't want you to treat it like an essay, but I want you to think about it in terms of who you're writing to, your audience, and why you're writing. So another email I have, this is from a student of mine who was requesting a recommendation letter. All right. And it says, hello to both of you. I need 150 words or less from each of you to apply for a scholarship. Your document must be singed and be in a sealed envelope and mailed to 212 Woodridge Court, Collinsville, Illinois, 62234. Prof. Simonton, I took out college algebra with last semester with you at Belleville on Tuesday and Thursday. And Prof. Boville, I took your English 101 class 2 semesters ago at the Granite City campus on Tuesday and Thursday. So we're talking about editing this week. If you look at this email, you can immediately see there's some editing needed. All right, there's this, I think this person meant signed, and then they didn't capitalize the address here. They also didn't spell out professor. They emailed both me and another professor, and here, I had not heard from the student in 2 years, and out of the blue one day, they emailed me and said, I need something from you. So not only am I asking you to think about editing, I'm also asking you to think about audience. All right, how can you convince the person you're emailing that they need to help you? And you do that with how and in what way you write, okay? So the article that I'm having you guys read is called How to Email Your Professor. And as you read, I want you to ask yourself, are any of these new to you, these email elements? Do you think it's important to have a greeting on the email you sent? And how does this compare to writing an essay? I've already kind of chatted on a few things, but I'm interested to see how you all react. So although I won't be requiring that you email me, I do that with some of my classes, but I do want to just point out that these are things you need to think about as you're entering a more professional world, a more professional space, because let me tell you, a poorly worded email can really impact you just as much as a carefully, really well-worded email can impact you positively, okay? So a few things to keep in mind. Have a subject, have a greeting, keep it concise. You can see this one's broken into paragraphs, which I love. And then edit carefully before sending. So the activities I'm having you do this week will help with editing. All right, so I'm actually gonna kind of quickly get through because Screencast's about to cut me off for being too long, but good luck editing. Good luck with the commas. I will be here if you need help, and I will talk to you soon.